Well, good morning or good afternoon, evening, not whenever you're watching this. Today we are working with the 17 Chrysler 300C with the 3.6 liter and the flex fuel system. The story goes the battery dies a lot. That's pretty much it. Seems we got a parasitic draw that we got to figure out. A little bit of background since it's been here, because it's been sitting in the lot waiting for me to get to it. When it first showed up, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, whatever, I charged a battery up on it like all day. Let it sit outside with a battery charger on it, let it sit up. After we let the battery charger sit on it for a while, that day I pulled it out and then disconnected the battery. And so it's been sitting for probably a couple weeks with the battery disconnected. That way it'll start easier whenever we go to bring it back in. Whenever I hooked the battery back up this morning, the voltage was down on that battery at like 9 volts. So it seems like we've probably got a bad battery in here as well. I think it's been replaced at some point. I don't know if it's been killed with the parasitic draw issue, but I was not expecting a dead battery at this moment, or at least a low charge battery today. What I'm going to try to do, and I don't know if it's going to work, but right now battery's connected. I also got a jump pack under the hood to help boost it off, get it inside. We're going to do the normal ammeter on our negative ground cable at the battery, which is in the trunk. So there's just the jump posts up here, and then batteries in the trunk. I think I'm going to also try to put the battery charger on the battery side, not on the post side up here under the hood, but on the battery side, just to allow us to get our testings done, and hopefully that won't interfere too much. I don't think it will, but we'll find out. Also, we got the wireless passive entry key thingies, and we're going to set the keys on the other side of the shop after we get all the doors open, hood open, trunk open, close all the latches, get our tools installed, and see what kind of draw we've got with her. That's where I'm at. We'll get all me. We'll get all our stuff set up, and I'll get an ammeter installed, and I'll bring you back once we get that set up and the key thrown over there. Okay, pay attention. I'm gonna give you a little pro tip here because I already played a joke on myself. We have the ammeter installed. Now, if you look here, the negative battery cable has a positive lead. The negative battery lug has the negative lead. That means any amperage coming out of the battery obviously is going to be measured by this. But if you look real close, that says negative 0.6 amps. And that got me a little confused because that should be positive. Now, if the leads down here were reversed and I had the positive meter lead on the battery negative lug and the negative meter lead on the negative cable, then I would expect to see negative. But we should not have a negative value there. That means there's there's amperage coming into this battery, not out of. And as I mentioned before, I had forgotten, we still got our boost pack hooked up. And so this thing is still on. We are flowing from this good booster pack through the jump start terminals all the way into that battery back there. So if we go ahead and flip this off, it'll still give us a voltage value, but it's actually not putting current out. Now we should be able to go back here, and we should have gotten rid of that negative sign. I'll disconnect those up there also. There she goes. That is quite the draw. Holy smokes. We got a 1 amp draw coming out of this thing. But anyway, the minus sign is gone. Likewise, this charger is currently off. Let's go ahead and turn it on and see if that affects our reading. It looks like it did drop it down. I'm going to go ahead while you're watching that. I'm going to go ahead and flip this charger off. Or 1 amp. I'm going to go ahead and flip the charger on. So we actually really don't have a big... Oh, there it goes. Well, actually, now I'm trying to figure out, do we have a module that's oscillating in its current draw? or is this charger actually affecting it? Oh, there it goes. I didn't touch the charger. So it looks like we're jumping between 0.7 to almost 1 amp. Let's watch it again here. There it is. All right, I have not touched the charger, and it's bouncing around. So real quick, I'm going to hit the charger off. Still sitting about 0.7. So realistically, there it goes, 1 amp. Let's hit the charger on. We're still at about 1 amp. Charger's on. So I don't think this charger is actually going to have much to do with our current draw. That draw is very large regardless. So I think I'm going to go ahead, leave the charger on the battery because I don't think it's going to affect our testing. And well, let's start popping fuse boxes and getting fuse voltage drop measurements. I reckon we'll start up here on the underhood fuse box. There really ain't much here, to tell you the truth. There's only like probably less than a dozen up here. We got a few of the like maxi larger ones. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We got 8 of the larger ones, a handful of smaller ones. We'll just start with the smaller ones and just see what we get. We got a 0. We got a 0. We got 0. A 0. I'm not gonna say 0 every time. I'm pretty sure you can still see this meter. Nope, another one up here. At least regulars. If none of these draw, we'll move to the rear fuse box. I think this car only has 2 fuse boxes, but I suppose we can probably check. All right, so all the small fuses have no drop. Let's go ahead and run around to the rear. If we got nothing on the rear, we'll start pulling the bigger ones out. One thing I do find a little interesting is actually one of my favorite features of Chrysler for troubleshooting. Anytime that we have interior or powertrain CAN activity on PowerNet vehicles, that cluster will light up anytime. So anytime any module comes up and biases the CAN network or either of the CAN networks, that dude will come on. But if we recall, when we come back here to the rear with our little meter down there, it's oscillating between the half to 1 amp ish, and that cluster is never coming on. So it seems like a module is waking up, going to sleep, waking up, going to sleep, but it's not. We got some loud cars going by, but it's not waking up the CAN network, which is just kind of interesting. I would have expected the CAN network to come up, but regardless, let's get set up down here, or we are kind of set up. We had to do some dancing around all our cable connections. There's our next fuse box. Let's go ahead and start doing our drops there. I think you can kind of see that meter thing there. These are a little bit more difficult to get to. Let me grab a light. Please hold. We got our light. We're back. Let's see what we can see now with that dude hanging in there. Grab my leads. Ooh, okay. Hey, I'm going to show you this. I ain't touched nothing down there except pull that cover off. Someone's been hanging out here. That right there is a fuse tool. It is hooked on one of the fuses, and I did not put that there. We'll move that aside for the moment, but it was on the second 20 ampere. Maybe that's one of our issues. Let's go back to doing our voltage drop test wherever we were. Yeah, you can see the meter. Cool. Ow, I just stuck myself with these leads. We'll just start on one end and work our way through. There. All right, we are coming up on that fuse that had that tool installed on it, that 20 ampere. Ooh, 3 millivolts. Oh, wait, hang on. 2 millivolts. That seems like a pretty big drop. 2.2. All right, we will come back to it. Sounds like that's our circuit, more than likely. Oh, wait, let's go back to the 20, to that one, and watch it and compare to the meter. So the meter, we're drawing 0.66 amps right now. We're at 2.2 millivolt drop. 0.7 amps, 2.2. 0.9 amps, 3 millivolts. This is our circuit for sure. So we're still at 0.9 and 3 millivolts, 0.4, 0.5, 2 millivolts. This is it. We got our circuit. I'm just going to go through the rest of them while we're here, just to make sure. But I don't anticipate to find anything else. So we definitely found the circuit. And we just got to figure out what in the world that circuit goes to. Alright, that's all of our normal fuses. Let me grab my favorite pliers. Please hold. The mini channel locks for the win. These are my favorite fuse pulling pliers. And so we are at 0.9 right now. I'm going to wait for it to drop down to like that half an amp. And then when it jumps back up, so now we're at half, 0.6. As soon as it jumps back up, I'm going to yank this fuse out because it stays there for, I don't know, 5-10 seconds. 0.7 and 0.9. Boom. 49 milliamps. Now I'm going to watch that for a second. 49 still seems a touch high for the Chryslers. Maybe I just ain't done them in a while. But I usually see that. I thought that thing would go lower. I'm going to watch this for a hot second and see if it drops anywhere from further down 0.49. Meant 0.049, not 0.49. My mistake. But it's been a couple minutes. We're still sitting at the 0.049. Our fuse is fuse number. So I get this orientation correct. So it ain't that one, it's this one, it's the second one down. F32 is what it looks like. F32 is HVAC module and instrument cluster. Well, that sounds like fun. We will, I'm going to make sure I'm staring at this correctly, but if HVAC module and cluster is what we're looking at, I suppose we're going to jump on the service info, look at some wiring diagrams, figure out how to yank those things out of there, and then and go from there. But very cool. That's what we got. I was looking at this stupid thing upside down, so I'm glad I rechecked myself. We're actually looking at F37, and F37 is the radio. I guess we're still going to the interior. I'm going to double check this again, but if that only feeds the radio, that seems pretty straightforward. We might be in a small quandary. I don't know yet. But here in highlight it says, excessive current draw can be determined by an ammeter reading in excess of 50 milliamps. We are at 49 milliamps, though it says the typical normal current draw will not exceed 20 to 30 milliamps. That begs the question, do we have something else that might be waking that radio up? But what's very odd also is the radio on these should be one of the two modules that connects to both the interior and the powertrain CAN bus, if memory serves correctly. And I don't know why. I would have expected something more 20 to 30 milliamps. 50 seems high. You know what I did not do? I did not look under the by the OBD connector to see if there's any aftermarket stuff installed. Let me go do that real quick. Let me poke my hood under the kick panel and see if there's nothing else under there. If there's not, then I think we might go start pulling some of them larger fuses, like the ones you can't test, and see if that 49 drops down to something lower. We might have two things here. I don't know, but that to me that 49 just seems a touch high for this particular car. Let me go stick my head under there and see what she pulls. I have made a decision. I did look under the footwell by the OBD connector. I did not see any aftermarket equipment installed. I'm going to go around and one by one pull all the large fuses in the front and rear fuse box and check to see if the draw drops even more. If and when that draw drops even more from the 49 milliamps to some lower value, I'm then going to plug back in the radio fuse and see what happens. I'll be curious to see that result. It's either that, because even my reasoning, even if we go to the radio and we disconnect the connector at the back of the radio and find, yep, the draw goes away, which is kind of what we know already, I'm still going to have the question lingering in my mind, where's that 49 milliamps coming from? Since the 49's still there, I can't imagine they're going to be related, but I don't know how else to check. This process is probably going to take me a few minutes to get through, because as soon as I unplug one of them big dudes, it will check the draw, but as soon as I plug that thing back in, then something's going to wake up. We're going to have to restart this whole process. So this is going to be probably a fairly time-consuming test, but I need to be sure where that 49 milliamps is coming from. That's where I'm at now. We'll pull the big ones and see which one kills that last little draw. Well, there's been a slightly interesting development. I don't think it's going to affect us too much, but wanted to make sure you're aware of it. Our normal consistent draw was 49 milliamps. You can see right now we're about 53 milliamps. What happened was I pulled this fuse here, and according to the box, that goes to the exterior lighting. So if I pull this fuse again, oops, let me reset my wire dealies here. So originally, the first time I pulled this, there was no change when I pulled it because it was at 49. So I'm going to pull it. There it goes to 49. So it's out right now. What happened is when I plugged it back in, it went from the 49 to the 53. Now I've let it sit here for a little over 15 minutes and it's still at 53. But I don't know why it's not dropping back down to 49. Either way, shouldn't be a huge issue with what we got going on. But we'll keep it in mind, and then we'll go through the rest of these and keep pulling them. Well, that just got a little funny. I pulled this one here, and there was no change. It was like 53. When I put it back in, it immediately dropped to 49. So I guess we're back to 49. All right, it's getting a little interesting now. This relay. I pulled all the big fuses in the front and rear, and nothing changed. Pulled all these relays. The only two left were this one and this one. This one I've not pulled yet. When I pulled this one, we got a drop. So this is the third slot in. Third slot in is relay 42. Relay 42 is front wipers. That is interesting. So when I pulled that one, I don't know why in the world a front wiper circuit would be pulling. Oh, it just died. I don't know why the front wiper circuit would be pulling actual amperage. Oh yeah, I also disconnected this just to make sure. But now we're down at 9 milliamps. And so the question then begs, what happens when we take our radio fuse and stick our radio fuse that you can't see back in its slot? Now we're up to our 0.6, and this was pretty cyclical. It'd go up to 1, down to half. No way. How did that drop? So now we're at 80. That's well, that's weird. I did not expect to see that. I don't know what that means. I don't know why in the world we would have so much less there. Well, for grins, let's go see if the cluster lit up at all or if the radio lit up. That looks like it's all off. I don't see any light in there. Let's go plug this relay back in. Wherever you can see, relay is now plugged back in. Let's see what we got. Well, now I'm super confused. That's an odd number. That is not anything that we had before at all. I'm going to let this sit here for a few minutes and see if this changes to anything else. Just while I'm thinking about it, I did double check service information. This fuse box back here and the one under the hood are supposed to be the only two fuse boxes in the car. And looking through the diagram, looks like we've actually got two different washer relays. We've got wiper relay 1, wiper relay 2. Looking at the fuse box, relay 42 is front wiper number 1, and 45, which you can't see because there was an awesome glare, 45 there is front wiper number 2. And so we're going to chase number 1 circuit and see where that leads out for the moment. It's been like 15 or 20 minutes. I walked away for a bit, come back. We're still at 80 milliamps or so. It's still a little oscillating a little bit. Our current, I think, schedule that we're going to do is we're going to verify that this relay, I'll pull it again, make sure that it does or does not take that draw all the way down. And if it does, the question becomes, okay, it did not. Excellent. Because the question at that point I was going to start asking is, do we have an interference or interaction somehow between the wiper switch or the relay goes to, it looks like the body control module, and then I'd be questioning, do we have a correlation between the body control module and this radio issue? Regardless, this is a completely different draw than we had before. We're at 80 milliamps. That's far from the half to 1 amp. But we're just getting all the phone calls today. Now we're down to 50 milliamps again. That's kind of where we were before. That's odd. I was not expecting this. Radio fuse is still out. Well, let's go pull this wiper relay again. Man, she's in there snug. This is a weird pattern failure if this is going to drop it back down. We have no drop. I have no idea what's going on. We're going to start over, I do believe. I'm going to plug everything back in. We're going to start the car, let it run for a couple minutes, shut the car off. We'll cycle the driver door latch switch deal so it looks like we got in and out of the car, and we're just going to see what our new draw shows up at after that step. I did not really pay attention to this, pulling this car in and whatever, but the radio won't come on. We can hit the power button, which is really just like a screen button or a screen off button. Nothing comes on. I wonder if that dude's even plugged in, because we saw that fuse tool on the radio fuse. I wonder if somebody's already been in there. The HVAC controls will work. I hear the clutch kick in for the AC. I get air blowing out the vents. Right now the engine is running and we're charging, but we got nothing here. Let's go ahead and shut it off. We'll do our door cycles, let it go to sleep, and see what pulls, what we got for a draw then. All right, I don't remember where I left off, but the car, I ran it and then shut it off, close the doors, or close the latch, lock the doors, move the key away. My meter's been sitting in the sun, so it's a little hard to read on the screen, but I can tell you right now it's at 0.7, just jumped up to 0.9, and we are going to pull this radio fuse again when it jumps up to 0.9 again. It's at there's 0.5, 0.6. I know it's hard to read on the screen, but I can see it where I'm at. 0.7. So as soon as it hits 0.9, I'm going to yank it. 0.9, yank. Now we're down at 0.04. So there's our really 49 milliamps. Let's go up and pull our our wiper relay. And then we'll run back and see if that has dropped off at all anymore. It has not. So we're still at 48. It's jumping 48 to 60 millivolt or milliamps. I don't know where that's coming from. Maybe it was just coincidence in the time that I pulled that relay that made it drop. So I'll bet you, I wonder if we let this thing sit for like an hour. I wonder if that drops off even more. I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to walk away from this thing. Actually, here, let's go ahead. Let's plug the relay back in. We should have no change. And actually, realistically, oh, you can't see. Relay's back in. This one I've not pulled yet. I pulled every other one in the car except this one. We're just going to do this check here to make sure nothing changes when I yank that one out. I suspect we're going to have our 49 milliamps. We do. It's bouncing 48, 49. There's a 50. All right. I think that was just that last probably hour, and maybe might be the battery sensor or something. We'll put this one back in. And now the radio fuse is the only one that's out. Since the radio fuse is the only one that's out, and we're still at our 50 milliamp draw, there's our radio fuse right there. It's missing from right there. We're just gonna walk away from the car. We'll go do something else we'll give it an hour or two, and we'll see if that ever drops off. And reading just a little bit further on our parasitic draw test procedure, it says for a more accurate draw reading, wait 20 minutes. I think we waited like more than 20 minutes by the time when I was going through pulling all the relays. We were way over that 20-minute mark. I'm pretty confident. It's T25 right now in the afternoon. I'm gonna go do something else, and then I'm just gonna let this sit for an hour or two, and I'll just check it from time to time. But we'll check it at 20 minutes, and then we'll probably check it at an hour and 2 hours and see what changes. Well, it looks like we might got this thing dialed in. It's been like 2-ish hours. Come back to it, and it's bouncing around between 9 and 11 milliamps. Oh, there's a 23 milliamp. So 9 to 20 milliamps. It's just kind of bouncing way, way under the 49 we was at before. And so whatever this is, that's probably a security light in there blinking or something. I don't really know. But it looks like when I pulled that wiper relay. It was just probably coincidence at the time that everything else went to sleep. Looks like we're going to go after the radio next, so I'm going to go ahead and pull that radio out. We're going to probably reset our test, and then I'm going to disconnect the actual connector at the back of the radio, see what that looks like, and I suppose we're probably just going to put a radio in it. Okay, we have the same pattern failures before. I plugged the radio fuse back in, and it drops to 80 milliamps. And so I think this is just part of the pattern. I've got the radio pulled out, but I have not unplugged it yet. I will say, I don't think I'm the first one here. If we go in and look at this radio, this retainer clip, you can see, is loose. And I did not do that. I think someone else has already been here. That's kind of interesting. I don't know if we're missing something or what. But just all this stuff is still plugged in. I haven't unplugged anything. We're going to reset it. We're going to reconnect. We're going to reconnect the battery up, start the car, let it run for a minute, shut the car off, lock it. We'll wait just a few minutes this time to where we get the oscillation between 600 and 1,000 milliamp draw. And then when that happens, we'll come back under this radio and unplug it and make sure that our draw does go away. All right, we have started the car, shut it off, locked it, all that stuff. We're back to there's our 0.6, 0.7, and then here in like 5 or 10 seconds is what it was. It'll jump up to like around 1. There's 1 amp. There she is. And it's just kind of repeating back and forth. That's pretty well where we've been previous. Let's go ahead, come in here and disconnect our main radio connector. She is unplugged. Run back to the rear. And there's our 40. It was 49 earlier. And then that's what it'll do. It'll hang out there for 2 hours and then drop out. So we definitely got a radio issue. I'm going to go ahead and look over the connector for the radio. Make sure there's no other weird inputs that might be alive. We may scope those inputs and just be sure. But looks like we're probably going to need a radio, especially since it won't even turn on. That's kind of indicative of it. Well, I reckon we got her figured out. She just needs a radio. I went through all of these connector wires here. I didn't say anything on any of them. And I tested because we got our fuse in. So I used a 4 amp test light, which is running the wires under the hood. We have, with the fuse in, we've got great power and ground there. I will say it was a little interesting whenever I was checking for power at this power red wire here. When I touched it, it was just enough to change some voltage somewhere to wake the instrument cluster up. I thought that was a little odd, but regardless, it's got good power and ground going to it. There's nothing on any other wires. And so, yeah, I'd say at this point, she just needs a radio. The radios are on intergalactic back order. And even if we could get one, the price is staggering. So I'm going to get with the customer, see what they want to do, and we will go from there. I don't know if we're going to have a resolution on this one or not because we can't even get a radio. I found one online. I don't know how reputable it is. We might try that as an option, pending they want to pay for it because they're pricey. But the radio wasn't working anyway. Maybe we just leave the fuse out and they're fine. So I don't know. We'll let you know. Closure on the Chrysler. It's been, I don't know, a while since we've had it up in here. We're just kind of waiting on the owner to decide what they wanted to do, and there's no decision, so we give the car back. But we just left the radio fuse out of it, gave it back to them, and at least they can drive it around until they decide whatever else they want to do with it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's been a long time ago since I filmed that. I don't really remember where I left off. But regardless, I hope that was helpful for somebody out there. If it was, cool. If not, well, we'll see if we can make something better in the next video. We'll catch you guys up then.